as debates continue taking place about rising anti-Semitism in the United States, and they do play out on the national stage, Dave Smith actually provided some clarity as to why the phenomenon is happening in the first place. Let's take a look.
We're 2% of the population in America. We are, by all objective standards, thriving. We're doing great. Jews are not an oppressed minority in America. We're doing better than the average American is doing, substantially. There's never once been an obstacle put in my way because I was Jewish. I never couldn't go to this school or couldn't get this job or couldn't do anything like that. And I've had a really great life here. In fact, probably the most anti-Semitism I've ever dealt with is from the pro-Israel people who call me like a capo every day because I don't support another reckless war. So my perspective is like, okay, so you're telling me the whole world treated us like crap. We've come here to America where we've been just very successful and treated very well. My default position is to love the country for that. Like, oh, well, then we should be really grateful to this country. That should be the attitude. Not going around lecturing people about whether they've been to the museum about our suffering from decades ago. If any self-respecting conservative or self-respecting right-winger saw any other minority group complaining about their mistreatment in another continent, in another country, in another century, you'd go, hey, shut up, get over it. We have to stop fighting wars on behalf of Israel, and we have to have some type of separation. I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm not saying we should be enemies with Israel or that we should go to war with Israel or anything like that. But the relationship, the special relationship between the US and Israel is so freaking weird. And now in this new media environment, it's been exposed. I don't think you can put that toothpaste back in the tube. Can't.
Okay, so I come at this from a slightly different perspective. I did agree with part of what Dave Smith said there, particularly the very last part, although I think if there's ever a case to go to war against any country, it would be Israel, but that's never going to happen. Now, what he said earlier in that statement, I don't necessarily agree with. I have no problem. In fact, I like the fact that we learn about the Holocaust in school. I do have a problem with the fact that there have been other terrible genocides and atrocities committed in world history that we don't learn about at all. And I want to know why that is. I mean, I didn't question it when I was growing up, but we never learned about the Armenian genocide in school, ever, ever, ever. That was not in any of my history books in high school. So that's a little weird. Like, how do the decision makers, when it comes to public education, decide what the curriculum for social studies or history looks like? So it's an important question to ask yourself. And then you look back at who published our textbooks for our public schools. And it happened to be Ghislaine Maxwell's father, Robert Maxwell. So I want kids to learn more about history because history is what prevents you from repeating the same mistakes, which I think we've been repeating lately. And also, if you watch my commentary soon after October 7th, right? Like, I was actually far more sympathetic to Israel than I am today. There's no question about it. And as the genocide in Gaza just went on, and there was just this shamelessness demonstrated by the Israeli government, obviously you become more and more angry about the injustices that you're seeing with your own two eyes. And so since then, after seeing all those innocent people slaughtered at the hands of the IDF, some people get upset and they're able to differentiate between a government, a foreign country, and the entire population of Jewish people. I don't take the actions of what the Israeli government is doing and put that on the Jewish population. That would be stupid. I wouldn't want my government, my current government, to represent my own views or the views of the American people when it comes to things like foreign policy. So I would never in a million years say like, oh, I don't even like saying this, but it's the Jewish people. No, it's not. However, there's a political ideology that's incredibly problematic that leads to what we are seeing with Israel today. And yeah, that's Zionism. That's this thought that you are entitled to not just having a Jewish state, but expanding your borders and taking control of the Middle East. So we've seen land annexation, failed states as a result of toppling regimes, arming terrorist groups in countries like Syria, which is why Syria has the leader it has today. All of that stuff leads to a lot of hostility and rage, right? And so when Netanyahu says that this is done in the name of the Jewish state or Jewish people, well, then others are not going to differentiate between a foreign country's government and the entire Jewish population. And so it would be great if the Israeli government stopped saying that they're doing this on behalf of the Jews, and that more importantly, anyone who condemns genocide and land theft is an anti-Semite. That being said, I definitely agree with what the two of them had to say in this next clip. Let's take a look at that.
There is a rise of Jew hatred. And if you really do care about that, the only way to combat that is that we got to end this. Like the same way we needed a separation of church and state so we don't fight religious wars anymore, we need a separation of the Israel lobby and the United States of America.
I think it's tough. We're very enmeshed, like more than people understand. Representatives, official and non-official, of the Israeli government throughout the US government at every single level, state and federal, okay? There's that. In our institutions, that would include the Pentagon and CIA, are biggest and most important. And then there's the question of like, what does that mean for Israel? Like, do they just allow the United States to be like, right, you're just like whatever, France now or Spain, we're gonna treat you like, an ally, but not a sibling. I think that we get punished for that. People are afraid of Israel. That's the difference between Israel and Spain. Everyone loves Spain, it's great. The Spanish, we can have bases there, you can put missiles there, it's all great. But no one thinks if you pull back aid from Spain, they're gonna hurt you. But everyone is afraid of being physically hurt by Israel.
Yeah, because IDF soldiers will slip into your DMs, literally send you photos of weapons that you as an American bankrolled and threaten you with them. That's why. That's why you have public figures who are critical of Israel literally saying out loud, I am not suicidal, I don't have any health problems, I'm very careful when I drive my vehicle. Like, people are genuinely worried that they will be harmed. And that is, by the way, don't forget the fact that early on in the Gaza genocide, you literally had American politicians like Nikki freaking Haley going to Israel to sign the bombs that they're gonna drop on children's heads. Remember when the IDF was writing Cenk's name on a missile? Remember that? Those threats. Yeah, those are the threats that make people fearful for their lives if they are openly and vocally critical of the very real war crimes that the Israeli government and military has carried out. And that's the kind of stuff, that's the kind of behavior that leads to hatred. And I wish it would stop, because I don't want Jewish people to be harmed. I don't want them to be targeted. I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. And I don't like hatred of any kind, whether it's racism, bigotry, xenophobia, sexism, misandry, all of that stuff. I hate it, I loathe it. I always have and I always will. But actions always have consequences. I talked about how US foreign policy leads to hostility toward the United States. It doesn't mean that the American people are bad people, but the actions of our government leads to other countries loathing us. It's not fair to us, but we have to hold governments accountable. And what Netanyahu, what the Israeli government has done, by the way, not just under Netanyahu, this historically has been a problem, and we're at a point where just the war crimes have reached a level that I never thought we would see in our lifetimes. I thought that Americans had evolved past it, but I was definitely wrong and naive about it. So I appreciate them having that conversation. And by the way, I also want to give Dave Smith a lot of credit for calling out the individuals who are actually anti-Semitic. They're the ones who go after Dave because he's not allowed to be a Jewish individual who has his own views on Israel's behavior. If he speaks out against Israel, as other Jewish people have, he gets smeared as someone who's like, oh, he's a self-hating Jew. Oh, so you're not allowed to identify as a Jewish person who loves your identity but is critical of a foreign country's behavior and actions? Oh, you have to have certain beliefs in order to be qualified as Jewish? No, that sounds anti-Semitic to me. It's not difficult. Judge people based on their character. Judge individuals based on their behavior. But don't lump an entire group of people together. Don't allow absolute scumbags like Benjamin Netanyahu to represent an entire population of people across the globe. That's my view of it.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.